should have a piece of paper of some sort.
What bear is this?
Just wait till everybody gets here. I'll make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. We're missing a Kai. Jesse.
What's the
There's the Kai.
Who else?
That's the guy.
who's
Who's heroine? Who's heroine? Do you have a
That was fun.
So a piece of paper, pen or a pencil. Don't do anything yet, just wait for instructions. Pay attention real quick, guys. Everybody pay attention?
Yep.
So, if you haven't noticed, can you stop doing that now? If you haven't noticed, over the past few weeks, we've had students from Westchester University. They may or may not have been in this class, but they've been kind of coming to each week. They've been coming and observing classes. Well, part of their student duty is to teach a course or a class or a lesson for that matter. So Mrs. Vile, who's from Westchester University, is going to teach a lesson on heroin, which is perfect because that's the topics we're covering right now with illegal drugs. And as I would expect you to act when I'm teaching, when another teacher's here, when a substitute's here, or Mrs. Anderson's here, I would expect you to treat Mrs. Vile with the same respect that you would treat everybody else, and pay attention and listen and and be courteous and all those other traits of good character that we talked about in 6th grade. Everybody understand? All right, so feel free to cooperate, raise your hand, get involved in the lesson, but definitely follow instructions, and we'll have a little discussion towards the end about the topic and some of the other things that we're doing. And then those of you that need to finish your charts, you'll have some time on Thursday to do so, if we don't have time today. All right, bet. All right, bet. All right, is that what you guys say? All right, bet. ARD? Not all right, like okay, like ARD, bet.
Alright, that means hard bet.
All right, bet.
Bet's on the job.
Alright, hi everybody. Like Mr. Rowe said, my name is Ms. Vile. I'm from Westchester University and I'm currently studying to be a health and physical educator. So hopefully one day I can be like Mr. Rufinak and teach a class just like this. I don't really know any of your names yet, so I'm going to do that cliche classic thing where we snake around the room, you'll give me your name and something to remember you by. So I'll go first. Miss Vile, obviously. I can sing the alphabet backwards without any mistakes.
Do it, do it.
ZYXWVUT, I used to work in the library and at GameStop, so I had to do alphabets a lot. So, we'll start with you since you're right in front of me.
I'm Danny.
Danny.
And Cody. Play basketball.
Play basketball. Okay, got it.
I'm a Kai. I play baseball.
Baseball. And how do you pronounce it?
A Kai.
Akai. Got it.
I'm John, I play this one.
Baseball.
Danny. I like The Office.
Akai. I love The Office.
I love
Yeah.
Storyline.
The Office. You?
I'm Marco, and Marco Kev. Actually. Marco Kev.
Marco Kid.
Marco Kev.
Marco Keller, that's all.
Mark together. Got it.
I'm Finn, and I can sing the alphabets forwards.
That's impressive.
With like one error.
I'm Alan. I'm going to
Volleyball?
I skate and I play ice hockey.
Ice hockey, that's cool.
Run track.
What event do you do?
I do hurdles and 100 meters.
I tried hurdles once and I fell flat on my
She
face.
I'm dead.
It happens. It definitely happens.
I have red hair. And
I do too. This is fake brown, so we're good.
I'm Emily and I play softball.
Softball, nice.
I'm Jessie and I play lacrosse.
I'm Eleanor and I play ice hockey.
Cool. I like to hear, a lot of you guys are really sportsy, so that's awesome. It means you're nice and active. So I can't promise to remember all your names. I'm gonna try really hard as we go through this lesson. But what I'm teaching today is kind of a heavy subject, but it's one that I hold really close to myself, and that's why I chose to teach it since you guys are in your drug unit. I'm gonna be going over heroin and opioids, but before we get really into the lesson, I've got 4 statements up on the board, and on your pen and paper, I just want you to write 1 through 4, and then true or false, if you think it's true or if you think it's false. So we have number 1, the current opioid crisis is being called one of the worst drug overdose epidemics in American history. Number 2, in 2012, 259 million prescriptions for opioids were sent out in the United States. In 2015, more than 33,000 people died in the United States from opioids, and deaths from heroin have exceeded gun homicides in the United States. All right, is this true or false?
Oh.
Oh, come on.
He wrote
I wrote one.
He wrote the question
All right, so just show of hands. Number 1, the current opioid crisis is being called one of the worst overdose epidemics in American history. Hands for true? All right, awesome. In 2012, 250 million prescriptions for opioids were sent out. Hands for true? Okay. There's a reason I'm not telling you guys the answers yet. In 2015, more than 33,000 people died from opioids. All right. And number 4, deaths for heroin have exceeded gun homicides in the United States.
It's gonna be all true.
You're right, they're all true.
What?
Every single one of them is true.
Why?
I did false, you false.
So,
Number 4 sounds.
number 4 sounds really bad, but like it says, we are in an epidemic. So, heroin and heroin-related deaths often, they go hand in hand. So as you guys know from your health classes, anytime you mix drugs, it always makes it worse, and a lot of people tend to mix heroin with other things. But we're just gonna go a little bit more in detail about heroin and how stuff like this can wind up becoming true. You can actually click 2 over. So what is it? Basic rundown. It's an opioid drug. It's made from a poppy seed. It generally comes from Asia, but it can come from other places like Colombia or Mexico. It's a CNS depressant. So what's a depressant?
Slows down the nervous system.
Yeah, it slows you down. It slows down your central nervous system. So initially when people take heroin, they might get a real big rush of excitement and pleasure, but later on they usually experience a really heavy crash where they're really tired and they can't really get out of bed, and it's really, really hard to move. It slows your breathing rate and your heart rate, and it can also cause hypoxia. Does anyone know what hypoxia is?
No.
Isn't that kind of where you suffocate?
Yeah, kind of. So hypoxia just means, if you break it down, hypo means low, or hy means low, and the oxia is oxygen. So it means low oxygen. So if you're not getting enough oxygen, your brain starts to shut down. So not only can that cause permanent brain damage, memory damage, it can also kill you. So if you're not breathing, you're gonna die. Another really scary thing is that heroin is highly, highly addictive. Just one use can set you on a path to addiction. you get serious cravings. It's psychologically and physiologically addictive. So not only are you getting the physical cravings, but you'll get mental cravings as well. And if you just stop, you'll get withdrawal. And what's bad about that is because your body starts needing it and craving it, it also builds a tolerance. So people would need more and more heroin in order to feel that same initial rush that they first got, which is what makes it so dangerous and one of the overdose epidemic problems that we have. And it's also super illegal. So if you guys ever get caught with it, you're definitely going to jail. Okay?
So like, what would you, like, what if you stopped like taking it like after like one time? Like, would it like,
You probably won't get as bad as withdrawal effects, but if you only did it once and it was a bad reaction, chances are you'll just throw up and feel super nauseated.
Doesn't mean to do it, guys.
Yeah.
You're-
No,
I'm not, Kai.
Seriously illegal.
Kai.
I got,
Yeah, I don't mean to interrupt, but remember the video we saw, some people took it once and died from it because of the small amount of fentanyl that was in it. Sorry.
You're fine. Next slide. Alright, so what do you know about heroin? It's an animation, so you kind of have to click. So, who knows what it looks like? Anyone tell me?
Oh, you can.
Mark and Kelly.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be like an orange thing when it's like in the syringe, or it can be like powdery, like kind of white, kind
Yeah.
of tinted white.
It could be a powder, it can be like the liquid. Okay?
no.
No?
Can it be like black and like black tar heroin?
Yeah, exactly, so, okay. White or brown powder can even be like beige or orangey. Usually when it's heated up is when it turns into a liquid form. And then it can also be a black sticky substance, which is exactly what you said, the kind from Mexico. It's called black tar heroin. Anyone know the nicknames, what it's called other than heroin?
Oh, no. Yeah, I know it was called
No, no.
Force.
Anyone else have any other ideas?
Wait, I just know myself.
Isn't there like
So the big H is one that they call it, horse, and smack. Does anyone have any ideas why they might call it smack?
smacks you in the face?
You get smacked and you take
We'll get
it.
to it next one.
Whack.
How it's used, it will give you a hint as to why they might call it smack.
I'll really,
Inject it into your veins.
Exactly, so.
or drink it.
So the most common one is injection, and that's where it mainly gets the name smack. So your veins, you have to hit them to kind of bring them to the surface, get your blood pumping, so that's why they call it smack.
You can look
Smack
at
yourself.
yourself and like fight
You
it.
act This isn't practice time, guys. I hope none of you ever have to do that.
Oh yeah, this is.
You would have to do.
But the most common is that it's injected. You can sniff or snort it, and you could also smoke it, but the most common is injection. And sometimes people, like I said, people tend to mix drugs if you're doing drugs. Sometimes it gets mixed with cocaine. That's typically the snorted version, and it's called speedball. That is extremely dangerous, and another reason you have 33,000 on the death toll for opioids and heroin. So some effects: short-term, dry mouth, flushing of your skin, really heavy feeling in your arms and legs like they're lead. Like if you ran really, really hard in track and you hit that brick wall and you just like can't feel your arms and legs anymore. Nausea, vomiting, severe itching. You ever see like people get the scabs and stuff because they get really itchy. And one of the common ones to tell if someone is using heroin is they'll typically sit and they nod in and out and their head rocks back and forth. Long-term effects, you can develop insomnia. You'll collapse your veins, which is typically when heroin addicts switch from using their arms and their legs to in between their finger pads and their toes. Yeah, it's not a nice habit. It's not a good habit. You can damage the tissue inside your nose, which is really soft. You can infect your heart valves. You can grow abscesses on your skin. Does anyone know what those are?
I don't want to
They're like
know. They sound bad.
pus-filled
Oh,
holes in your skin.
delicious.
No.
No.
You can go into liver and kidney disease, develop mental disorders like anxiety, depression, bipolar, and for guys, if you wind up using it for a long-term, sexual dysfunction. So there goes your love life. Wild.
That's
And there's some bonus side effects. If you're injecting, you have a high higher risk of contracting HIV, which also, puts your life at risk. And you're at risk for homelessness. Anyone, oh, sorry. Does anyone know where this is?
It's like,
Virginia,
it's probably like really like
North Carolina.
Hollywood.
It's actually right around the corner. It's behind some train tracks in Philadelphia. They just started a project to help clean this area up. But it's a notorious area for heroin users to go and use because it's kind of hidden from the public, kind of hidden from police. A lot of homeless people live there.
Okay.
And like I said, I keep this subject really near and dear to my heart. I grew up with a cousin. He was the only cousin my age in our family, so we were like best friends. And he made some bad choices over the years. He wound up getting addicted to heroin. He got hurt. He was working a really tough job. He got hurt, got addicted to the pain pills, couldn't keep his finance with his pill addiction, wound up with heroin, and I think it was 4 years ago, we lost him. We couldn't find him. He was living here for a week, no cell phone. He let it die because he couldn't pay the bill. We had no contact. We didn't know if he was dead or alive. And to think he was living in a place like this, no real clothes, whatever. Our whole family was out looking for him. Luckily, we have a really big family, so we have a big search team, and we found him. We could get him the help, but just the fact that a few bad decisions can lead you to this being your home. Just let that sink in. So, some statistics. More of them. 494,000 people in the U.S., 12 and older, so we're talking young adults, your guys' age range, report using heroin in the past year. Like I said, epidemic. It's becoming, especially with the increase in prescriptions for opioids, it's becoming a lot more common to see in younger people, which is really scary. Over 15,000 people died from heroin overdoses. Heroin-related overdose deaths increased fivefold from 2010 to 2017. So just to map that out, this is 2006 or 2005, and here's 2014. And these are overdose per 100,000 people in the United States map. I pulled this from a study from the New York Times. So the red is the death.
Yeah, Alaska's filled.
Yeah, Alaska has a really big problem.
What are you doing in Alaska?
Well, I mean, it's winter like 8 months out of the year, so they're pretty bored.
And a lot of jobs.
Oh my God.
And then people ages 18 to 25 are most at risk for developing a heroin addiction, which is really scary because we have siblings who are 18, we have family members who are in that age range, and they are at risk for that just for being the age that they are.
And that first stat there, the number's probably higher because it says reported, right?
Yeah,
So
a lot
how
of
many
people.
are gonna say, oh, you know what, I'm the one doing heroin.
No.
It's an anonymous survey, but we lie to ourselves and we're gonna lie on a survey because you don't want to admit that you did that. So it's a really steep path to addiction. It can happen really fast. The important thing to remember is it's not the same for everyone. Some people, it's a matter of peer pressure. For my cousin, it was a matter of he had an injury and just abused his prescription pain medication. And sometimes it only takes one bad choice. And it's also important to remember that if you make other bad choices, it can lead you to this road even if you don't think it will. If you're drinking alcohol, you're 2 times more likely to become addicted to heroin than your average person. If you're smoking marijuana, you're 3 times more likely. If somehow you wind up on a cocaine habit, it's a little bit more common in college than it is your guys' school. 15 times more likely to wind up addicted to heroin. And if you get prescribed opioid painkillers and you abuse that medication or misuse it, 40 times more likely to wind up addicted to heroin. So it's really important to just be aware of the people around you, the choices you're making, because the path to addiction is not a pretty one. Like I said, we lost my cousin, and luckily we have a good enough support system. We got him in and out of rehab a few times. But really, ultimately, the thing that scared him straight was he was living in a halfway house, which is a place that you go when you're struggling with rehab. And his house sponsor, the head of his house, was lying dead on the floor from a heroin overdose. And he saw that, and he has 3 younger siblings. He said, I don't want that to be me. I don't want my family to have to hear that. Like, it's time to take it seriously. So, in order to avoid addiction and avoid this thing, what do we do? I'm gonna have you guys pair up with a pen and paper, and we're gonna talk about some scenarios. Yeah.
Girls, if one of you guys could join up with Gianna and just join.
Daddy.
Yep, I'll give you scenarios, and then you're gonna tell me what you would do, we're gonna talk about it. So if you guys are all ready, so I'm gonna walk back here really quick, because I have a little something. So say you guys are walking in the hallway, and it's only you in the hallway, maybe one other student, and then you see something like this on the floor. Is that flour?
That's it, like,
You see
hold
something
on.
like this on the floor, you don't know what it is, but you have your suspicions. What do you do?
Tell Mr. Deal.
Go to the principal.
Go straight to a teacher.
Toss it.
Good, that's exactly right. You don't want to be like to the other student, hey, did you drop this? Or try and copy it. If you have any suspicions, you want to go straight to your teacher or straight to the principal, because it's a highly addictive, highly illegal drug, and even if you hold on to it, you're putting yourself at risk to get into a lot of trouble. Scenario 2. So you go over to a friend's house, you guys are having a good time, some other people come over, and then they ask you if you want to have a little party. They say, my mom has these pills, she takes them at nighttime whenever she wants to feel better. She's a nurse, she would never keep anything that's bad for you. Do you want to try one?
No.
Say
No.
I'm out of your house. I'm just out of your house.
So what do you guys do? This is one of your best friends. What do? Do you just walk out and leave? Like,
I say no,
No, you
no,
said you
no.
told them no, and I say I am.
exactly. You want to try and bring them to the conclusion that this is bad. You want to warn them of the things. You want to, if they're really, really persistent, then you want to go home, but you want to try and stop them from using as well.
Throw it away, grab it from me. Trash it. Flush it.
All right. Let's see.
Throw it up.
Yeah, but you definitely want to review the fact that if they're taking it, that is drug abuse. They are abusing drugs at that point. If it's a prescription medicine and it's not prescribed to you or them,